They lied to you, told you kindness wins, that if you're soft enough, open enough, agreeable enough, you'll be accepted, respected, even loved. But reality is colder. This world doesn't crown the kind. It crowns the calculated, the silent, the ones who move like fog and strike like silence. If you've ever felt ignored while others with less substance held the spotlight, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or quietly dismissed, you've already seen the truth. Being good is not enough. In fact, it's often used against you. Your openness becomes ammunition. Your empathy becomes entry points, and the very people you try to please learn how to bend you. What you need isn't approval, it's power. Not the loud, theatrical kind. The quiet kind. The kind that shifts the tone of the room before you speak. The kind that makes people watch their words, question their steps, second-guess their judgment. The kind that radiates from a still face, a calm voice, and an unreadable mind. Readable. This is not a video about becoming someone else. It's about becoming someone they can't afford to ignore. Someone who doesn't just survive the game but rewrites it. What follows are 7 psychological weapons, each sharpened through history. War, silence, and truth. They are not for the faint. They are not for the nice. They are for those who've had enough. Enough of being too available. Enough of being easy to understand. Enough of being easy to forget. After this, you won't just learn how power works. You'll become its architect. So if you're tired of being the one who gives everything and gets little in return, stay exactly where you are. Don't blink. Don't scroll. And don't forget this. The world doesn't listen to noise. It listens to presence. And yours is about to become unforgettable. Influence isn't earned by shouting louder. It's earned by becoming a mirror so subtle, so precise that the person standing in front of you mistakes their own reflection for connection. You don't dominate them with force. You infiltrate them through familiarity. While most people try to impress by being different, you begin by being invisible. You study. You adapt. You reflect. Not their words, not their habits, their rhythm, their insecurity, their emotional logic. That's the battlefield. Because here's what they don't teach you: people don't fall for you. They fall for who they think they are when they're around you. They fall for their reflection, their ideas, their patterns. And if you have the discipline to mirror their mental framework, you instantly become essential. Not because you're real, but because you're familiar. And in a chaotic world, familiarity is a drug. This isn't manipulation, this is design. You're not flattering them. You're syncing with them. Emotionally, psychologically, even neurologically. And the more they feel seen, the more they hand you their trust. Their guard drops. Their secrets spill. And all the while you remain unmoved, observing from behind the glass. But here's the shift. The mirror isn't who you are. It's just the tool. Behind it, you are steel. Still. Detached. Strategic. You are not absorbed by their chaos. You use it as a map. Want trust, mirror their values. Want influence, mirror their insecurities. Want control. Mirror their ambition, then show them a shortcut. And when the time is right, remove the mirror. Suddenly they're exposed, unsupported, desperate to reattach to the version of themselves they saw in you. And you're already setting the terms. This is why kings don't chase loyalty. They mirror the people's desires until the people kneel willingly. This is why great negotiators say little, but echo your phrases back to you. This is why leaders with presence don't reveal who they are, because they've already made you project your identity onto them. This is the silent invasion. And it works because humans are wired for self-recognition, not truth. They will cling to anything that makes them feel known. You just happen to offer that for a price. So stop trying to be impressive. Be familiar. Stop showing your truth. Reflect theirs. That's how you get in. And once you're inside, that's when you start shaping the room. Remember, you don't mirror to please. You mirror to enter. You mirror to observe. You mirror to rewrite. And when the illusion is no longer needed, let it shatter. Let them feel the emptiness of seeing themselves, without the comfort of your reflection. The one who defines the room defines reality. Most people enter a room hoping to be liked. You won't. You will enter to shape it. Understand this power doesn't begin with what you say, it begins with what people unconsciously agree to before you speak. That's the frame. It's not a tactic, it's the battlefield itself. And whoever controls it controls how everything else is interpreted. The average man walks into a space and immediately bends. He adjusts his tone, softens his presence, searches for cues on how to behave. In doing so, he silently agrees, "This isn't my world. I'm just trying to fit in." And that's where his power dies before the first word leaves his mouth. But you are not that man. You will walk in with the energy that this is your domain even if it's not. Because frame isn't about facts, it's about perception. It's about who radiates the most certainty. You do not speak to react, you speak to define. You don't answer questions, you restructure the meaning behind them. And when someone challenges your authority, you don't defend you, let their energy collapse into your stillness. Frame control starts with one thing: emotional sovereignty. Your voice doesn't rise, your posture doesn't shrink, you don't justify, you don't explain. You say less, but when you do speak, your words feel final. Because they come from a place of internal authority, not performance. And here's the secret that bends the world to your will. People are addicted to certainty, not truth, not fairness, certainty. Even if you're wrong, if you deliver your reality with calm confidence, they will hesitate before questioning it. Why? Because most are terrified of being seen as unsure. They'd rather defer to someone who appears unfazed than confront the chaos of doubt. So, while they search for cues, you become the cue. While they adjust, you remain still. And in that stillness, you bend the tone of the room. You don't raise your voice. You raise the standard. Let others panic. Let them over-explain. Let them flood the space with nervous energy. You stay calm. You observe. And when the moment is right, you speak not to join the noise, but to reset the narrative. This is how kings hold court, not by arguing, by anchoring. Frame is power in its purest form, unspoken, undeniable, and invisible to those who lack it. From now on, you don't enter rooms, you reframe them. And if your presence doesn't do that yet, then your silence will train you until it does. Control isn't taken, it's designed. Most people think persuasion is about being reasonable, appealing to logic, being liked. That's why they fail. Because real influence isn't born from fairness, it's engineered through contrast. You don't ask for what you want. You shape the conditions that make your true desire seem like a favor. This is where the door-in-the-face technique becomes your invisible blade. It works like this: you lead with a request so large, so bold, that rejection is inevitable. You're not trying to win with that ask. You're setting the stage for your real move. Because when they say no, and they will, something primal is triggered. They feel guilt. They feel discomfort. They feel an urge to restore balance and appear reasonable. That's when you slide in the true request, the one you wanted all along. Now it doesn't feel demanding. It feels modest, rational, even generous. Not because it changed, but because you changed the frame around it. You didn't negotiate. You manipulated perception. Want someone to commit 2 hours? Ask for 10. Watch them hesitate, push back, and breathe a little easier when you settle for 2. Now they feel like they're in control. They feel smart, balanced, even kind. But in truth, you just walked them into your structure, and they thanked you for it. This technique is not about aggression. It's about design. Subtle, calculated, cold. It works in sales, in relationships, in business, in life. Wherever there is negotiation, there is opportunity to weaponize contrast. But make no mistake, your success depends on your emotional detachment. You cannot flinch at the first no. You expect it. You invite it. And when it comes, you remain calm, composed, almost gracious, like the compromise was your idea. Because it was, all along. Most men don't understand this. They're afraid of rejection, afraid of hearing no, afraid of seeming selfish. But you reject comfort. You use resistance as leverage. You don't beg for permission. You build the illusion of it. This is how power moves quietly, precisely under the mask of fairness. This is how kings structure alliances, how strategists create yeses out of refusals, not by asking harder, but by shaping what's compared. They'll walk away thinking they negotiated, that they were wise to deny your first offer and wise to accept the second. But they never saw the truth. There was only one outcome, and you walked them to it with a smile. This is not coercion. It's choreography. And if done right, they'll never even feel the strings. Power belongs to the man who feels everything and shows nothing. You've been taught that expressing emotion is strength. That vulnerability makes you human. That reacting shows you care. But in a world built on perception, every emotion you leak becomes a weapon someone else can use. Anger becomes bait. Sadness becomes leverage. Excitement becomes a trigger. And just like that, you've lost the game without realizing it even started. This is why the most powerful men feel everything, but show nothing. Cold emotional mastery is not numbness. It's discipline. It's having a storm inside and keeping the surface still as ice. It's walking through betrayal, disrespect, chaos, and not giving the world a single flinch to feed on. When you react, you reveal. And when you reveal, you become predictable. Predictable men are easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, easy to control. But when your voice stays calm, when your eyes don't shift, when your posture doesn't crack, people stop seeing you as someone to toy with and start sensing you as something to fear. This isn't about repression, it's about redirection. You still feel, but you process in silence, you observe in calm, and you move in strategy. Every time life tries to pull a scream out of you, you answer with stillness, and that stillness becomes louder than any outburst ever could. You're not hiding emotion. You're controlling timing. Because the man who controls when and how he expresses emotion controls everything. He decides when to intimidate, when to disarm, when to connect, and when to vanish. Think of every king, every tactician, every alpha presence you've ever respected. Were they explosive or were they composed, deadly calm in the face of chaos? That's not nature. That's mastery. And it's earned in silence. The world will poke at your pride. It will test your limits. It will send you enemies who smile while planning your fall. You will be betrayed by friends, misjudged by fools, baited by weak men who scream for your reaction. Don't give it to them. Let your restraint haunt them. Let your silence make them second-guess every move. Let them scream into your stillness and hear their own weakness echo back. This is how power is maintained, not through force, but through emotional sovereignty. You are not a robot. You are a storm wearing a crown. And every time you choose not to react, you forge the walls of your inner empire thicker, colder, and more untouchable. The illusion of openness is often the most dangerous mask. In a world starving for connection, people rush to tell their story, eager to be understood, desperate to feel seen. But the moment you speak too much, you surrender the most powerful weapon you have: mystery. The most dangerous man in the room is never the one who talks the most. It's the one who speaks just enough to appear sincere, just enough to disarm, just enough to build trust while revealing nothing of real consequence. This is the art of selective disclosure. Most men confuse honesty with transparency. They think power comes from sharing everything: their plans, their pain, their passions. But full exposure breeds predictability, and predictability breeds vulnerability. The more they know, the more they can use. But you are not a broadcast. You are a cipher. You speak not to express, but to influence. You disclose not to unburden, but to redirect. You weaponize fragments of truth like broken mirrors, just enough to reflect light, but never enough to reveal what's really behind the glass. You admit minor flaws, a past mistake, a subtle insecurity, a harmless secret. It makes you seem real, relatable, trustworthy. But it's a diversion, a magician's flourish, while they lean in closer, believing they've seen behind the mask. They've only seen the mask you wanted them to see. You give them your past, but never your next move. You offer emotion, but never strategy. They think they know you, but they don't even know what direction you're facing. This is not deception. This is psychological architecture. People crave depth, but most can't handle your full truth, not because it's too dark, but because it's too strategic, too deliberate. You're not living to be understood. You're living to be effective. And if effectiveness means revealing less, so be it. This is how kings maintain loyalty, how leaders maintain presence, how you become the enigma in a world of oversharers. They may know your name, your face, even your pain, but they'll never hold your essence. Because it's locked behind layers of silence only you control. Remember, this true vulnerability is knowing what to reveal and when to reveal it, not bleeding on command. So speak like an open book with half its pages missing. Smile like someone who trusts easily, but trust like someone who's been through war. Let them believe they know you, because what they believe is the leash they wrap around their own neck. You don't lie. You curate. You don't confess. You calibrate. And when they think they've figured you out, change the story. He who needs nothing becomes everything. Validation. It's one of the most addictive currencies on earth, and most men are broke because they keep spending it, not realizing its true worth. They chase it. They perform for it. They dress, speak, and post for the approval of people who don't even respect them. And in doing so, they surrender the very thing that could have made them magnetic detachment. You want to be respected, admired, desired. Then stop seeking validation and start controlling it. The powerful man does not ask to be seen. He doesn't beg to be praised. He doesn't live for applause. He becomes the source of it. And once people realize you have what they crave, the rare signal of approval, they begin to orbit you like addicts, hoping for just one moment of recognition. But here's the trick: you don't give it freely. You give it sparingly, intentionally, in doses so rare that every word, every glance, every nod feels earned. The less you give, the more valuable it becomes. This is the law of emotional economics. Scarcity drives obsession. If everyone has it, no one values it. But when your praise is rare, it hits like lightning. A subtle compliment from the silent man who rarely speaks will pierce deeper than paragraphs from someone who never stops talking. So don't react when someone tries to impress you. Don't rush to affirm when someone shares something vulnerable. Hold. Pause. Let them feel the absence. Let them question. That space, that psychological silence. It creates tension, and people will move mountains to resolve that tension. Some will work harder. Some will break trying. But either way, you own the dynamic. You don't need to criticize. You don't need to command. You simply don't validate and watch as people contort themselves to earn what you withhold. This applies everywhere in business, in romance, in leadership. Because when you become the standard, others want to impress you. No longer chase attention. You become the reason others pay attention. This doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're strategic. You reward behavior that aligns with your vision, and you do so with precision. You handled that well. You're getting sharper. Nothing emotional, nothing excessive, just sharp enough to strike. That's how loyalty is built. That's how influence is earned. Not through noise, but through calculated scarcity. And the key to it all, you don't need anything from anyone. That's what makes you unforgettable. Because in a world full of approval junkies, the man who doesn't chase becomes the prize they'll never stop chasing. When you disappear with purpose, you reappear with power. There's a reason kings don't walk among the people every day. It's not arrogance, it's design. Presence means nothing if it's constant. Access kills allure. Familiarity erodes reverence. The man who is always seen becomes background noise. But the man who disappears on his terms becomes mythic. This is the power of strategic absence. We live in an age of overexposure. Everyone is online, always available, constantly explaining themselves, updating, posting, proving. And the more they scream to be seen, the more invisible they become. Attention is currency, and most men spend it like pocket change. Not you. You will learn to vanish, not as escape, not as retreat, but as calculated dominance. You leave not because you're afraid. You leave because you know what your presence does, and you know that without scarcity, it loses impact. So you choose when to engage, and more importantly, when to pull away. Because here's the secret: absence creates space, and in that space, imagination grows. Curiosity sharpens. Obsession begins. The people you step away from will start asking questions. Where did he go? Did I lose access? Did I do something wrong? They start reflecting. They start chasing. And that's when your presence becomes unforgettable. Not because of what you gave, but because of what you withheld. In relationships, this triggers longing. In business, it commands respect. In leadership, it builds mystique. You're no longer just a person. They don't even see you fully, but they feel you. And that feeling becomes a gravitational pull they can't explain. But absence is not enough. It must be timed. Disappear after impact. Withdraw after presence. Step back while your influence is still echoing in the room. That's when your silence says more than your words ever could. Don't explain. Don't justify. Just vanish. Cancel plans. Delay replies. Skip appearances. Make your distance feel intentional, like a man who's moved on to more important terrain. Because you have. And when you return, you don't apologize. You don't fill the silence. You bring presence back like a rare signal interrupting static. And they listen. They remember. They respect. In a world full of men begging to be noticed, you'll haunt them with your restraint. Your distance will sting louder than their noise. And while they exhaust themselves trying to stay relevant, you'll rise by saying less and meaning more. This is not withdrawal. It's warfare. Absence is your shadow weapon. And when you master it, you won't just be remembered. You'll be missed by people who never really had you. You don't use power. You become it. By now, you've seen the patterns beneath the surface, the mirrors, the frames, the silence, the vanishing acts. You've seen how most people stumble through life leaking emotion, chasing approval, revealing their entire strategy before the first move is even made. And you're no longer one of them. This isn't about remembering tricks. This is about redefining who you are. Because the goal was never to just play the game smarter. It was to stop being a piece on the board and start becoming the one who built it. The man who mirrors minds is not copying. He's infiltrating. The man who controls the frame doesn't win arguments. He rewrites the context. The man who asks for more than he wants isn't pushy. He's orchestrating decisions before they're made. The man who feels everything but reveals nothing doesn't lack emotion. He's weaponized it. The man who speaks in fragments isn't withholding truth. He's guarding strategy. The man who withholds validation doesn't seek praise. He becomes the source of it. And the man who disappears isn't gone. He's become myth. This is the architecture of silent power. Power that doesn't shout. Power that doesn't beg. Power that doesn't need confirmation. It simply is, and its presence shifts rooms, conversations, loyalties, and futures. The world will try to pull you back, to soften your edge, to convince you to explain yourself, to open up, to seek applause. Don't. Because when you seek to be understood, you give others the power to define you. And when you stop defining yourself, you vanish. But your version of vanishing will be different now. You will vanish with force, with purpose, with cold grace. You've built a mind others can't enter, a presence they can't predict, a silence they can't ignore. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them misinterpret your stillness as hesitation. Because while they chase noise, you're becoming the signal. You are not what you say. You are what you withhold, what you endure, what you shape without needing credit. And that makes you untouchable. This isn't the end of a video. It's the beginning of a transformation. One that doesn't live in what you post or proclaim, but in every room you enter, every stare you hold, every word you choose not to say. You weren't built to be liked. You were built to be remembered. So stay cold, stay clear, and let the world feel you. even in your absence. In a world addicted to noise, the most powerful move is silence. Not passive silence, but strategic restraint. This journey wasn't about manipulation. It was about control of self, of perception of energy. The kind of control that turns you from someone who reacts into someone who orchestrates. The biggest lesson: you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to overshare to connect. You don't need to prove yourself to gain respect. True influence comes from knowing your value so deeply that you no longer need external validation to confirm it. By mirroring others' minds, you build bridges. By mastering your emotional reactions, you become unreadable. By holding back validation, you teach others to value your voice. And by disappearing strategically, you raise your worth through scarcity, not performance. These aren't tricks. They're habits. And if you live them, not perform them, you stop chasing power and start embodying it. So ask yourself, where am I leaking energy by over-explaining? Who have I given too much access to? When was the last time I let silence speak for me? Power isn't about control over others. It starts with discipline over self. And when you master that, the world begins to adapt to you. If this made you rethink how you move, speak, and lead, hit that subscribe button, share this with someone building silently, and drop a comment. I move with strategy, not noise. Stay sharp, stay untouchable, and revisit this anytime the world tries to soften your edge.